Thanks again for joining us. My name is Darryl Kwao. We begin with cocoa, and a team of West African producers of cocoa is calling for clear guidelines regarding terms of intra-African trade. So far, the government has introduced various policies to boost intra-African trade, including the paperless port system. Members of the West Africa Regional Fair Trade, an international organization advocating fair trade practices among African countries, says there's still more to be done, especially regarding the agri sector. There's more in this report. Ghana, in collaboration with several West African economies, have converged to find out the best means of boosting the production in the cocoa sector. This is going to be through the Fair Trade Convention, which specifically brings on board all farmers and stakeholders in the cocoa industry to find out the best ways by which the cocoa production base can be expanded. The West African Regional Fair Trade Convention is an event which brings together trade executives across West Africa to deliberate on best ways to boost trade ties in the SAP region. Key among the agenda was an emphasis on government to deepen ties with other West African countries like Ivory Coast in the determination of global prices like cocoa. Speaking to Joy Business at the sidelines of the event, Chief Operations Officer of the Fair Trade Africa, Dr. Chichi Kuroma, says fair trading between African economies can be enforced only if countries ease up the business environment in their respective zones.
You find that for fair trade, we don't really put our face out there. Why? Because we believe in social justice and empowerment of the producers themselves. We believe in creating a voice for the producers. But I think, like you have heard in the morning, the fair trade work in Africa was controlled from Bonn, Germany, up until 2016. And the management you're seeing right now for fair trade, this is a new structure for Fair Trade Africa, and it has been in place for only 2 years. And so our visibility in the last 2 years has increased. Our impact is getting much more. We are starting to inquire about why this model. How can we make it work much better and much more for the Africans?
On his part, Deputy Minister for Trade, Carlos Ahenkra, assured that government is currently in talks with some West African countries on best ways to improve intra-regional trade.
What I see here right now is a fair, agreement between buyers and sellers. That look, we're going to give you something more from whatever we produce, from your raw material, but we want you to show us what you use the money for, so we can bring you more. And from what I see on the screens, people are really using the money for the interventions that they are required to use them for. But I want us to get more of that money back into the producing country.
The biannual Fair Trade Convention was under the theme Unlocking the Business Potential of West African Producer Organizations. Now, President Akufo-Addo is promising significant reduction in youth unemployment in the country from next year. The president's optimism is based on the full implementation of some key policies like industrialization, agriculture, and human capital, which would be the main focus of the 2018 budget. Answering questions at the Bloomberg Africa Business Conference, the president said these policies are going to be implemented in a way that would help with the transformation of the economy.
What we're doing here in Ghana is trying to focus the attention of our young people on two key areas of our national life, because we believe that improvements in the development of these two key areas is in fact the key to a future prosperous Ghana. One, the development of our agriculture, and secondly, of course, of our industrial development. And the two main programs that we have launched, one is the public sector program. We have something we call the Youth Employment Agency, which is responsible for harnessing youth in several areas of publicly supported activities. I mean, the agency this year is poised to complete the year by employing some 60,000 people. Then you have the private sector initiative that is also supported by the public sector. We have a national entrepreneurship and innovation plan, and we've been able to establish with a relatively modest seed figure of some $10 million United States dollars, whose job it is to identify startup businesses by young people, businesses that are going in the early stages, and support them. support them not just with money, but with assessing technical assistance, generally improving the quality in which they can do their business.
Let's turn to oil matters now, and Deputy Energy Minister Dr. Mohamed Amin Adam says government is in the process of reviewing oil and gas contracts in the country. He noted that this will help eliminate corruption in the energy sector. Now, Dr. Amin Adam was speaking at the 3rd Oil and Gas Summit in Accra under the theme Maximizing Oil and Gas Resources in Africa.
Over the years, African countries have relied on international partners who own capital and technology to enable the exploitation of our resources. However, in many cases, ladies and gentlemen, the partnerships have been less than symbiotic between the state and the partners. The drivers for this situation is often attributed to corruption and the much talked about capacity of institutions. Therefore, the promulgation of laws such as the US Foreign Corrupt Practices Act, the UK Bribery Act, Canada's Extractive Sector Transparency Measures Act, the EU Accounting and Transparency Directives, and many others underscore efforts at exposing corruption and stopping the looting of resources meant for the development of our countries. Unfortunately, there appear to be more efforts at checking abuse of our resources in the states of origin of foreign international companies than those of resource host countries, particularly in Africa. Further, our institutions have been largely captured and often under-resourced, pursuing special interests in most cases and appropriating rent to a few in our society. This has led to devastating consequences for Africa's development. Ladies and gentlemen, we have to reverse this trend if we are to maximize benefits from our petroleum resources. The way to do this, among others, is to ensure that the processes of awarding contracts are transparent and credible and removes doubts on the minds of the ordinary citizens and relevant stakeholders. Madam Chair, in Ghana, our government has strengthened our commitment and determination to making the punishment for corruption punitive and deterrent, and to promote the independence and effectiveness of mechanisms for fighting corruption. In this respect, a bill is currently before Parliament for the establishment of Office of Special Prosecutor to deal with high-level corruption cases across sectors, including oil and gas. We've also subscribed as a country to international processes of addressing extractive-based corruption, such as the EITI and the Open Government Partnership, and the results so far have been quite impressive.
Well, the Deputy Minister of Energy, Dr. Mohamed Amin Adam, is also emphasizing the use of the country's gas resources to stimulate massive economic growth. Let's hear more of what he has to say about that.
Gas has become a very important resource for our country. We can use it for power generation. We can also use it for other industrial activity, including petrochemical development. And so we think that if Ghana is to transform our economy, gas offers us that opportunity. And this is why we are embarking on an aggressive gas infrastructure work. For instance, the reverse flow project is ongoing. We expect to finish it early next year. Apart from that, we're doing a number of pipelines, and we are considering another processing plant to add to the Atoabo gas processing plant, so that this infrastructure that we need to be able to commercialize our gas potential are put in place to enable us leapfrog leapfrog from where we are to an economy that is robust, an economy that grows faster, where the benefits can be felt by all the citizens of our country. So this is a very ambitious program, but we are determined to do that.
All right, so we'll turn to the 2018 budget. Be modest with the macroeconomic targets to be set out for next year. That's the advice coming from economist Dr. Joe Abe to Finance Minister Ken Ofori-Atta as he prepares to present the 2018 budget to Parliament this Wednesday. The country has over the years struggled to meet revenue growth and expenditure targets set out in the budget, resulting in some of these estimates being reviewed 6 months after presentation. But Dr. Abe has maintained that this development does not help in efforts to consolidate investor confidence in the economy. Speaking to Joy Business as part of our Budget Watch series, the economist is pushing for value for money in government's whole expenditure agenda for next year.
There are these types of things where the law, the technicalities may provide answers. But you listen to some of these things and you ask yourself, who really understands what these political leaders are talking about? The most recent ones about the energy bond. You hear all manner of technical, super technical explanations about why this happened. In April, we had a similar debate about whether there was conflict of interest and so on. So they sit down and they are talking. And a lot of us don't understand what exactly is it that they are talking about. So we need to carry the people. We in civil society, we, the true owners of the business, these are appointed managers. We, the true owners, must hold ourselves to account. We must set realistic targets, because if the embarrassment and the costs come, the impact on our lives, it requires sitting down, looking at what is realistic, be able to hold ourselves to that, so that it is not some people coming with their interests who tell us, if you don't give me this, I won't do that. That any Ghanaian will find reason to be like rejoicing about the fact that we tried to float a bond and it flopped. This is something we as Ghanaians must be saying, what are the implications? What can we do? What did we do wrong? It's not somebody, it's we. So we should reach a point where if genuinely there were things that were technically not correct about an action, we shouldn't go and do it and decide who is to blame. It is our responsibility to deepen our understanding of the opportunities and also the risks that are in our way.
Well, checks by Joy Business show that government appears to be on track in meeting most of the targets set out in the 2017 budget, with the exception of revenue. This was after all these numbers were revised in July this year. Meanwhile, economist Dr. Joe Abe is calling for a review of the country's expenditure patterns instead of coming up with many more promises. This, he says, will enable the country identify loopholes in various sectors.
Well, as I said, the main problem is that we can't find more resources to spend. So at the back of our minds must be trying to get the most mileage of whatever we've got. That is, you can't run around that. I mean, if we were to be looking at areas of saving, I feel that part of the thing, if you're going to be reviewing things, would have been to say, look, every zongo is in a geographical area. Every zongo is in a district. So shouldn't it also be part of this whole thing about how to get out of the rut that may be the lot of the zongo dwellers? By asking, so you, this district assembly in which this zongo is located, what have been your plans? What plans have you had? What have you been doing? Where are the weaknesses? So why is it that it is the only road that will have special funds added to the district in which the zongo is located? And then, so what is new? What makes us believe that this time around we will not recreate the zongos? So I'm saying that as part of the review, whether of taxes or not, we should also be reviewing our expenditures. And we should also insist that we want value for money. Whatever we've got, you can't have a situation in which so much leakages. We find technical nice names, ghost workers, leakages. What do they mean? it means that somebody has done away with the resources of the land. And sometimes having the need to retrieve itself may also be just sidetracking everybody. So my thing is that we need to be looking at compliance. We need to collect what is due, okay? It is not going to be that easy, but we need to be able to do it. We need to also look at what do we do with the expenditures. Auditor General's reports keep pointing out all is not well in the way we use our resources, whether it's in district assemblies, we have got delayed projects, we've got abandoned projects, we've got malfeasances every year. These things get repeated. You've set up a gift miss, and then you have expenditures outside of the gift miss. What does it mean? And yet we go through all the rigmarole, we get these things done, we get approval, only next year. Why is it that it took Occupy Ghana a lot of hard work to be able to get some movement on what happens with the Auditor General's report?
All right, so the countdown continues to Wednesday when the budget is presented to Parliament. Let's just refresh your memory a bit. Here are some highlights of the 2016 budget. All right, so this is a place to be if you want to follow everything budget. Again, on Wednesday, the Finance Minister will present the budget to Parliament. We'll be bringing you coverage here on JoyNews. We want to turn now to the stock market. Joining me in studio is Bertha Atibika of Gold Coast Fund Management. And I want us to begin, Bertha, with commodities, with cocoa. Interesting news we're hearing now about, the Fair Trade Organization calling for partnership between Ghana and Ivory Coast. But you have some news on cocoa. What do you have?
Okay, so on cocoa, the government is expecting to hit 2 million metric tons by 2019.
That's significant?
Yes, that's very significant. If you compare it to what is happening currently, we have about 968,000 metric tons. And this is a huge metric tons in addition to what we are doing right now. And what they seek to do is that they're going to employ about 30,000 cocoa farmers. They are going to have this new technology come in place. They're also going to have an irrigation system that will give them water, and they can have an all-year season, not a particular season for cocoa, but they will have an all-year season. And they're also putting in measures to reduce the black pod disease that actually affects cocoa plants. And if you look at these measures that have been put in place and the target that they seek to achieve, it means that we're going to have more supply, an all-year supply of cocoa. That is, if these are really implemented strategically and very prudently, we're going to have an all supply of cocoa, and this is going to make us more competitive on the international market. So I think it's a good move, and it's going to be very good for the cocoa.
Exciting news, but I can't say same for the city. We didn't start the week well, did we?
Yes, the city actually lost marginally to major trading partners by close of last week. And if you look at the year-to-date depreciation, that's how much the city has lost against these major trading partners, as the dollar, the pound, and euro. It's at 9%. It became a little stable, and then we saw it lose somewhere last 2 weeks. And by close of last week, we saw it go down again. And we have the year-to-date depreciation now clocking 9%. And that is, though it is not significantly high, but we've seen that marginal decline of the city against this major trading partner, especially the pound and the euro. And if you look at the performance of the pound this year, from January to as of Friday, the city has lost 11.66%, and the euro it has lost 15.45%, and to the dollar 4.58%. So you see that it is a bit stable, to the dollar, but not to the pound and euro.
All right. Yeah. So let's, I just hope things just recover quickly so people wouldn't get worried. But let's turn to the stock markets, how trading began this week as well.
Okay, before I even come to today's market, last week the major indices, the composite index and financial stock index, went up by 2.41% and 1.82% respectively. And we saw this close at 42.56% and 33.37%, which is quite impressive. And the stock market is still doing very well. It started this year on a very good note and is still doing marvelously well. Though we had volumes and values go down as compared to previous week, we still saw the major indices do quite well. BOPP was part of the gainers that we saw last week, and BOPP today has gone up by 2 pesos. It's now at 6 cedis, 2 pesos per share. It closed last week at 6 cedis per share, and it has returned 188.46%. That is the highest year-to-date return that we're recording currently on the stock market. So BOPP is one equity that you can look out for. It started the year below 3 Ghana cedis per share, and it's now 6 cedis, 2 pesos. So you can see that significant gains that investors that invested in BOPP are making currently on the market. ETI is also returning 70%. It's also at 17 pesos. It started the year at 10 pesos and is now 17 pesos per share. And we saw last week 2 equities, or when you look at the financial sector on the stock market, we have 2 equities that are returning negatively to investors. Most of the equities or other equities are returning positively to investors. SIC and Access Bank are returning negative 16.67% and negative 17.07%.
And what's the reason behind that?
Well, Access Bank last week, one major thing that happened last week was it lost 51 pesos on its share price based on the normal demand and supply that we have on the market, and that actually resulted in its major index year-to-date return going down to about negative 17.07%. And on the alternative market, we had 500 shares trading in Intravenous Infusions Limited, one of the very liquid and actively traded equity on the GAX, and it closed at 9 pesos per share. The worth of the equities, we had 45 Ghana cedis. And now coming to today, Access Bank is still trading at 3 cedis, 40 pesos. BOPP, like I mentioned, closed at 6 cedis, 2 pesos per share. We had Carl closing at 1 cedi, 6 pesos. It hasn't changed. It traded only 200 shares. EcoBank traded 1,500 shares at 7 cedis, 55 pesos. It added a peso to its previous share price of 7 cedis, 54 pesos per share. EGL maintained its price at 3 cedis, 95 pesos after trading 500 shares. ETI still at 17 pesos. GCB traded 9,000 shares. That was the second highest traded equity today on the stock market, and GCB is closed the day at 4 cedis, 23 pesos. We didn't see any change in GCB as well. And then PBC 5,000 still at 6 pesos. Societe Generale 75 pesos, traded 300 shares, and the highest traded equity SPL, it traded 9,700 shares and is trading at 2 pesos per share. It's not very active on the stock market. Yes, and then the final equity is Unilever, which went up by 2 pesos to close at 12 cedis, 66 pesos after trading 300 shares on the stock market.
Thanks as always for the update, Bertha, to be got there with the latest on the stock market. Time for our interview of the day. Over the weekend, they were judged the best industrial company of the year. I'm sure you may have heard. I'm talking about Tropical Cable and Conductor Limited. We want to bring back our interview with the chairman of the company, Tony Otin JC.
Haven't expected anything like this. This has normally been won by the foreign companies, the big multinationals, and I think it is unique. But we know we deserve it because we have worked very hard in Tropical, and have a fantastic team in Tropical, and they have worked very hard over the years. So we are very pleased with it.
One of the main concerns that was raised in this award ceremony is the need for industries to adopt safety measures. What is it about the case of your company?
I mean, like those who have followed us know, we are the first in many things in this country. We're the first cable manufacturer to get ISO 9000 certification. We have a vigorous occupational health and safety program in the company. So, I mean, all these things we are taking care of already.
Finally, what do you expect from government in relation to the 2018 budget as a businessman?
Well, it has been said, some reduction in power tariffs will be good. The stimulus package, will be good. The actualization of some of the factories under one district, one factory project. All this will be good because the nature of industries, the more industries you have, the more synergies you get. So we need more industries in Ghana, and it also helps with the unemployment problem.
All right, so Omnibank says it is close to meeting the minimum capital requirement requested by the central bank. It's actually found 5 investors and hoping to seal the deal by the end of this month. There's more on that on our website, myjoyonline.com. You can read more about that. That's it. Yes, plus all the other bulletins you missed out on, we've got videos uploaded online for you. My name is Daryl Kwao. We are back same time next week.